So Joseph's in charge of the entire country of Egypt. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I put you in charge of the whole land. Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring, which means you make all the rules, put it on the finger of Joseph. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. And I was like, you're super filthy, stinking rich now. You have the most awesomest clothes. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command. And men went before him and shouted, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh gave him a wife, and Joseph had 2 kids, and he named his kids. It's really good. I like his names. He named them, Manasseh, which means God has made me forget all the troubles of my father's house, like all my brothers picking on me, and being the favorite and being the tattletale and all that stuff. It means God has made me forget all that crappy stuff or crummy stuff that happened to me when I was in growing up. So that was his first boy. He named them that, and the second boy he named Ephraim, which means God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. So even though my time here has been kind of crummy, I've ended up being really fruitful in the land of my suffering. Alright? So then Joseph was 30 years old when he was put in charge, and he went through all of Pharaoh's, during the 7 years, all the abundance of the land. He saved up in every city. He had these big, silos and buildings where he saved all the extra food, and there was tons of extra food because it was such an amazing, abundant time. Alright, the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt, stored in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up a huge quantities of grain, like sands of the seashore. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because he was beyond measure. Alright? So, then, when the 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and just like Joseph had interpreted the dream, 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had said, there was famine in all the other lands and in all of Egypt. When all of Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh said, go see Joseph. He told all the Egyptians, go to Joseph and do what he tells you. So when the famine spread all over, there was food in Egypt and all the cities. All the people came, all the countries came to Egypt to buy grain. And Joseph, because the famine was so severe in all the world, and Joseph sold them grain. Alright? So then, one of the cities that was surrounding Egypt lived a family. Jacob was dad, and there were 11 boys. Just one of them used to have 12 boys, but one of them got sold as a slave. So anyways, these are Jacob's brothers, right? Joseph's brothers. So when Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, why do you just keep looking at each other? I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some. So the 10 boys of Joseph's brothers went, and Benjamin stayed home. They went to Egypt, and who's everybody supposed to go to get the grain? To Joseph. So they go to Joseph. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Remind you of any dreams Joseph had? As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them. He pretended to be a stranger. He spoke harshly to them. Where do you come from? From the land of Canaan. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them, and he got kind of ticked off. Probably because they were like, we'll never bow down to you, we'll never bow down to you. He remembered all those things in his head from his childhood. And now here they are, bowing down. So when he remembered about the dreams, and they're sitting there begging him for food. He basically just really gets, I don't know if he's angry or what, but he just starts kind of playing games with them. He says, "You are spies. You have come to see where the land is unprotected." And they're all like, okay, so Joseph is got his brothers there. They're bowing down to him. They're asking for food. And he's like, "You're spies. You've come to check out the land so that you can invade it, so you can see where it's unprotected." And they're like, "No, no, no, no. We came for food. We came for food. We're honest men." That's what the Bible says. It says, "We are honest men. We've come only to buy food." That's actually the food part's right. Maybe not the honest part. And he says, "Spies! You are spies. No, 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 no." And then he starts asking them all these questions. "Where are you from? Do you have any brothers? Tell me about your parents? Tell me about your family." So they start saying, we're 12 brothers. One of them is still home. The youngest one stayed home with Dad, and the other is no more. Who's the no more one? That's Joseph. And then he just keeps on saying, Joseph keeps on saying, "Spies! All of you are going to be put in prison. I'm going to put all of you in prison. I'm going to let one of you guys go home. And this is how I'm going to test to make sure you're not spies. The one that goes home has to bring back to me the one that you said is still at the house." Now, that's important to Joseph because Joseph had one brother from the same mom, and it was Benjamin. Like, Jacob had 4 wives, but he only had Joseph and Benjamin with Rachel, which was his favorite wife. So Joseph is really interested in Benjamin. I don't know if he's ever seen him before. He's probably never seen him before. He might have been in slavery the whole time. In jail. I'm not sure. He might know about him. But anyways, he hadn't seen him in a long time. So he's like, "This is how I'm going to test to see if you guys really aren't spies. Go back to your house and get that one guy. I'll send one of you can go home and bring home that one boy. Bring that one boy to me, and then I'll know you're not spies." So he lets them sit in jail for 3 days, and then I'm sure those 3 days were really hard on them. They were really worried, really stressed out. And finally he gets them all back, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to let all you guys go back home except for one. We're going to keep one guy in prison." And he chose Simeon. Make sure I got that right. I don't guess it really matters. Yes, Simeon. So I'm wondering if Simeon, since he's the one that got chosen to stay in the prison, maybe had something to do with him getting thrown in the pit. Maybe it was Simeon's idea. Don't know. The Bible doesn't say. But so Simeon stays. They bound him up, throw him into jail. Lets all the other guys go home. And Joseph gives orders. He said, "Fill all their bags with grain, and put each man's silver that he bought to buy the grain with, put it back in the mouth of the bag." All right? And send them on their journey. So all of them leave. They're going to go back home. They got to go face Dad. Tell him that Simeon's not with them. And in fact, not only is Simeon gone, they also need to take Benjamin back to the really mean guy from Egypt. So we'll pick up the story tomorrow. Love you guys.